I think we can all agree that when I say that school sucks, the entire education system sucks. But I don't think a lot of people recognise that some people fall victim to it. And by that I mean we're trapped in a never-ending cycle of torture till the end of our lives. And the worst part is, no one can understand why. Not even us. Up until I was about 10, I had the standard school experience. I did it every week, I had a few friends, I didn't enjoy it, but I kinda had to go. And as with most kids, no problems arised, at first at least. But the school I was specifically going to wasn't being kind to me with how they educated me. I have autism, which back then meant it was hard to do certain classes. So the school thought it would be a good idea to take me out of the classroom to do those lessons one-on-one. But as I've learned as I've got older, having other people in the room learning the same things as me is, for some reason, really helpful to me. And one-on-ones just make learning stuff a whole lot worse. I know for plenty others it's the total opposite, but hey, we're all weirdos. Eventually, by the end of year 5, I had had enough and begged not to go back. Things were on a downward spiral, even outside of the lessons department, as my friends had practically zero of the same interests as me, so I drifted apart from them, meaning there was basically nothing to look forward to in school. Now, I don't know if I was just being a bratty 10-year-old who wanted nothing more than to play Pokemon, watch YouTube and imagine all her really dumb worlds.
Jesus Christ, it's only been 5 years!
But either way, I went through with it. I ditched the school. I kept in touch with some of my friends for a while, but due to how little our interests crossed, we drifted away. At the time, I didn't fully understand how or why I was different from the others, or even really that I was different from the others. Even after I was told I was autistic, I didn't see what separated me from the quote-unquote normal kids. But that's a separate topic for another day. It took a bit of searching, but my mum eventually found an alternative school that catered to more special needs kids, which seemed like a good sign. But the problem with being a sucky kid in a sucky school is everybody else is sucky too! Woo! I didn't have too many friends this time. My class was only a class of like 12, but I didn't enjoy or even know most of my classmates. There was one girl who tried to befriend me, but I just felt uncomfortable around her with how many alarms were ringing off. But looking back in hindsight, I don't think that school was doing anything for me either, because even in a whole school's worth of odd one out kids, I was still the odd one out. I still didn't fit in. I lost count of the days where I'd just cry in the corner for whatever reason. Everyone else's problems were either bigger than mine or smaller than mine. My situation was in a completely different category that the school didn't cater to. And it didn't help that I was surrounded by kids who had also numerous things wrong with them. I'm not saying that's anything bad, but just looking at everyone around me who was messed up in some way just reminded me of how I was messed up. I didn't want to be, but I was. And being an 11-year-old, still struggling with her identity, I just couldn't accept that. I just wanted this stupid autism stuff to just go away. But the worst part, the thing that topped it all off, was despite all their shortcomings and problems, the other kids still found some sort of light. I could not. Yet, even after all this, the school managed to keep me hanging by a thread until somebody new had arrived, who we'll call Sparrow. Sparrow was also an outcasted nerd, so we got along quick. She was the closest to what I considered a friend in all my life up to that point. Pretty soon after Sparrow started, they separated me, her, and one other new girl into a separate class, since all of us were struggling with this place. Now, with only 3 kids total, you'd think this would be a problem for me, but oddly it wasn't. It might have been because I already knew them for the most part, so this was basically our little friend group class. I was starting to actually enjoy school for once, and I thought we had finally reached the light at the end of this long, dark tunnel. The end of all this stupid school kerfuffle. I thought the 3 of us would be as friends for as long as we could. But nothing lasts forever. It didn't take long for things to start going wrong. The other girl started becoming really aggressive. And no, I don't mean she became a bully of mine. I've never been bullied in all my life. I mean, she just started setting off so many alarms in my head. And one day, she just snapped. I don't remember why, but she was wrecking the classroom, swearing all over the place. And if matters couldn't get any worse, Sparrow joined in the argument. And so both of them were being really aggressive. And then there was me. A scared little girl who didn't want to fight in any way and just wanted to finally get along. I don't fully remember the details of that day, but the wreckage is all I really want to remember. My brain was fully terrified in the moment and was just thinking on autopilot. Once my mind was fully overloaded with the fight, I fled. I dipped from the classroom, ditched my teachers and classmates, and just fled. I kept on going, and I never turned back. That school was as good as gong in my heart. The teachers and classes were mostly fine, but I barely made any mere resemblance of happiness between the other classmates. And the ones I did had blown up in my face. So just over a year after I started, I stopped again. My mother tried searching and searching for possible answers, but couldn't find any, and the COVID pandemic didn't make things any easier. For nearly 2 years, I was a homebound derp. But at the tail end of 2020, my mum finally had a clue. A special place located inside of another school, which I don't fully remember what its purpose was, but my mum was convinced it would work. And once again, it didn't take long for things to start going wrong. This time though, it wasn't really any big bang moment, it was just a slow burn of loneliness and lack of enjoyment in the class. And the other kids there, or lack thereof, didn't make things any easier. So after around 6 months, I dropped out. Luckily, the school this was located in was designed around kids who had trouble with schools in the past. And the original plan was already that I would leave the first place anyway to start this bigger school. So I thought, this was it. This is the true light at the end of the dark, torturous tunnel. This was finally my chance to... well, I'm not sure. And maybe that's why it didn't work either. I had simple art and design lessons every week, which were easy enough to follow. I mean, they weren't great, but better than nothing. Or so I told myself at the time. And slowly over time, they added more classes. However, it only made things worse, as all of them were either one-on-ones or just one other kid. And as I said before, that doesn't help me in any way. All it does, it hurt me. And I think they vastly underestimate how hard it is for introverts to befriend other introverts, at least offline. As neither of us are going to start up a conversation leading us to never talking or even knowing. So I tried my best to ditch all of it. None of it was helping in my eyes. It was a brief distraction from my regular life, but that didn't automatically make it better. My mum was trying to push me to go there, as this was our last option, but I was just tired. Tired of this endless cycle of trying, hoping, failing, fleeing, repeating. Some people are gonna call me weak for not giving them a second chance, but trust me, I gave them a third chance, and it still didn't work. The fact that my time at school got smaller and smaller as we went on should have also been a big red flag. But there's really no other options. This is just how the world works, right? This is what you have to do to survive, otherwise you're not worth it. But it shouldn't have to be this way. There's likely tons of other options, maybe even different depending on the person, but the education system assumes we all fit under one category. And that one category happens to be one that doesn't appeal to the vast majority of us. But most of them trudge through it anyways because they've been convinced this is just how the world works and there's no changing it. Others, however, are just barely hanging by a thread, unable to call for help, or just out of options. And then there's us, who aren't able to push through at all, and, as I said at the start of the video, fall victim to this horrible method of education. Things shouldn't have to be this way. Things shouldn't be this way. The system shouldn't have to force a huge amount of people into unwinnable fights. Things need to change. We can't let this torture happen to future kids who will know better. And if anybody still has a hard time believing that school isn't right, well, what have I just been pouring my heart out for this entire video? Mainstream schools failed me. Special schools failed me. The education system failed me. I know this was quite a bit more serious than my usual content, but this subject is pretty personal to me in my experiences. And by the way, I'm not saying anything like, oh, I've had the worst experience, oh no, please feel sorry for me. I can guarantee there are millions of people out there who have had it far worse. Like, everybody in the class bullies them, or abusive teachers, or there's likely millions of people out there who have suffered through far worse hell than I have. And in comparison, you might think, well, what are you complaining about then? This video, in comparison to all those other people who have gone through that shit and just been fine with it. Several times making this video, I have stopped and thought, was this really worth it? Should I really be making this video? Because yes, I know other people have had it worse, but on the other hand, just because other people have had it worse doesn't mean I shouldn't come out about my experiences and how they've affected me in my life. Just because other people have it worse doesn't mean your problems are invalid. And that is a lesson that I carry with me throughout my whole life. You can tell I did not write a script for this outro. Thanks for watching my dumb video. Sorry for no bloopers this time around, but they'll be back when I'm back with lighter content. I really did not know what to say for this or how to say it. Thanks for sticking through this whole thing. This took way too much out of me, so I'm gonna go take a break from YouTube and maybe draw some things instead of drawing dumb video things. Yeah, that might be a smart idea. But until next time, I'll see y'all.